Time lurched to a halt as the runaway black hole loomed over the Daxamite homeworld, poised to devour the planet in mere days. Aboard the immense alien spacecraft, Dr. Roger Robertson stood amidst the gray-skinned Daxamites, their large heads swiveling to appraise him with a mix of desperation and disdain. "Your primitive species is our last hope," Supreme Chancellor Zorax intoned, his voice dripping with reluctance. "The finest minds of the Daxamite Science Council have failed to contain the singularity. You will assist them, or watch your own world be consumed by the same fate." Roger's pulse quickened as he pored over the complex equations projected before him. The Daxamite's haughty certainty faltered as he noticed a critical error in their calculations, an oversight that would spell their doom. He met Princess Zephyr's piercing gaze, seeing a flicker of intrigue amidst the sea of skeptical faces. Biting back a triumphant grin, Roger delivered the revelation that would rock the foundations of Daxamite superiority. The key to their salvation lay not in their vaunted intellect, but in the primal cunning of a human mind. As the skeptical alien scientists bristled, and Chancellor Zorax simmered with resentment, an unlikely alliance began to form between the eccentric Earthling genius and the brilliant Daxamite princess. But even as Roger and Zephyr raced to refine his solution and seal the ravenous black hole, treacherous factions moved against them from the shadows. In a battle where physics and politics intertwined, the determined human would need every ounce of his intellect and tenacity to save an alien world from oblivion, and to survive the wrath of those who would kill to maintain the status quo. As the containment model took shape under Roger's deft hands, General Zod's hawkish eyes narrowed with each breakthrough. In the shadows of the Daxamite High Command, a cabal of hardened officers gathered, their faces etched with suspicion and disdain. "The human's success threatens everything we stand for," Zod growled, his fist clenched. "Our superiority, our way of life. If he succeeds, we'll be forever indebted to a primitive." Murmurs of assent rippled through the room, a chorus of wounded pride and simmering resentment. "We must act," Zod declared, his voice a razor's edge. "Discredit the Earthling, destroy his work, show our people that their salvation lies in Daxamite strength alone." As loyal soldiers mobilized to carry out Zod's will, Roger and Zephyr huddled over the prototype quantum stabilizer, oblivious to the gathering storm. The lab hummed with focused intensity, the black hole's phantom presence spurring them on. Suddenly, the doors burst open in a hail of shattered glass and twisted metal. Roger looked up, his eyes widening as armed Daxamites poured in, weapons trained on him and the princess. "Step away from the device," the lead soldier barked. Roger's mind raced, calculating angles and possibilities even as Zephyr stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. "Stand down! This man is working to save our world!" But the soldiers ignored her, converging on the delicate equipment with cold purpose. Roger lunged forward, desperate to protect the fragile containment model, but a blow to the head sent him reeling. Through blurred vision, he watched in horror as the Daxamites systematically tore apart his work, the key to their salvation reduced to smoldering ruin. "Zephyr, we have to go," he urged, fighting down panic as he pulled her towards the door. The princess hesitated, torn between disbelief and outrage, but the sound of booted feet pounding down the halls spurred her into motion. Together they fled into the bowels of the ship, pursued by the echoes of shattering hope. As they raced through dimly lit corridors, Roger's mind churned with desperation and dawning realization. The forces arrayed against them were more than physical. They faced a tide of fear and prideful obstinacy that threatened to drown their efforts. Zephyr pulled up short, her face tight with tension. "We need help, Roger. We can't do this alone." Roger bit his lip, frustration warring with persistence. He thought of the long nights spent poring over equations, the glimmers of understanding he'd coaxed from an uncaring cosmos. He couldn't let it all be for nothing. "Who can we trust?" he asked. "Who on this ship would defy the Chancellor and the military to help us?" Zephyr's eyes gleamed with sudden inspiration, a lifeline in the darkness. "Dr. Lana Lorvan, my old mentor, she's always been a voice of reason, challenging our leaders' isolationism and arrogance. A wry smile touched her lips. And I know for a fact that she's been working on advanced gravity control technology in secret. Roger felt a surge of renewed hope, the first embers of a plan kindling to life. Then we need to find her, he said grimly, before Zod and his goons find us. As they slipped into the shadows of the ship's underbelly, Roger's mind reeled at the twists of fate that had brought him here. An Earthman thrust into an alien world's darkest hour, his intellect the only shield against oblivion. But as he glanced at Zephyr's determined face, her presence a steadying force in the chaos, he felt a flicker of something more than mere perseverance. A connection forged in the crucible of crisis, a bond that transcended the gulf between worlds. The darkness ahead seemed a little less absolute, the weight on his shoulders a bit more bearable. With Zephyr by his side and Lana's aid, Roger knew they would find a way to reforge their shattered containment model and save the Daxamites from the ravenous anomaly. It was only a matter of time, and of staying one step ahead of those who sought to bury the truth in the rubble of sabotage and lies. Roger's mind raced as he and Zephyr hurried through the ship's winding corridors. The destruction of his work echoed in his ears, but a new commitment burned within him. As they neared Dr. Lana Lorvan's hidden laboratory, a spark of inspiration ignited. "Zephyr," he whispered urgently, "your mentor's gravity control technology. It could be the key." The princess's eyes widened with understanding. "Of course, if we combine it with your quantum stabilizer design—" They burst into Lana's lab, startling the older Daxamite woman hunched over a complex array of equipment. Her initial shock gave way to recognition as Zephyr quickly explained their situation. "We don't have much time," Lana said, her fingers flying over holographic displays. "Let's get to work." Hours blurred together as the trio labored feverishly. Roger's mind churned with calculations, his hands shaping virtual models of an enhanced containment field. Sweat beaded on his brow as he integrated Lana's gravity tech with his own designs. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. Roger stepped back, eyes wide. This could work. We can engulf the entire black hole, halt its growth completely." Zephyr leaned in, studying the schematics. "The power requirements are enormous." "The planetary core," Lana breathed. "It's the only source strong enough." Roger nodded grimly. "We'll need to route the geothermal energy to orbiting projectors. It's risky. If we're off by even a fraction, we could tear the planet apart." A heavy silence fell over the lab. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on them. "We have to try," Zephyr said quietly. As they prepared to move, alarms blared through the ship. Lana's face paled. "They've found us!" The lab doors exploded inward. General Zod strode through the smoke, flanked by armed soldiers. His eyes locked onto Roger with cold fury. "Seize the human!" Zod bellowed. "He'll doom us all!" Chaos erupted. Energy weapons flashed, filling the air with acrid smoke. Roger grabbed Zephyr's arm, dragging her towards a small craft docked in an adjacent bay. "Go!" Lana shouted, positioning herself between them and the soldiers. "I'll hold them off." "Lana, no!" Zephyr cried, but Roger pulled her into the ship. As they rocketed away from the lab, a massive explosion rocked the vessel. Lana had destroyed her life's work, denying it to Zod at the cost of her own life. Grief etched Zephyr's features, quickly hardening into steely purpose. We can't let her sacrifice be in vain. They landed near the geothermal power control center, slipping past panicked workers as alarms blared. Inside the cavernous facility, Roger's fingers flew over alien controls, rerouting the planet's lifeblood to the orbiting projectors he and Lana had secretly launched. "It's working," he breathed, watching energy levels spike on the monitors. A thunderous boom shook the room. Zod's forces had arrived. "How much longer?" Zephyr asked, gripping her weapon tightly. "Not enough," Roger growled. The containment field flickered to life on the screens, but the black hole continued to grow. "We need more power." The doors began to glow red-hot as Zod's men cut through. Roger's eyes darted frantically across the control panels, searching for a solution. His gaze fell on readouts for the city's fusion reactors. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and diverted their power to the gravity projectors. The screens flared brilliantly. The black hole writhed, its inexorable expansion slowing, then stopping, then reversing. The doors burst open. Zod stormed in, his face contorted with rage. "What have you done?" Roger stood tall, gesturing to the screens where the singularity collapsed in on itself, consumed by the containment field. "I've saved your world." Zod's eyes blazed with fury. "You've killed millions. The city is without power. Life support systems are failing." Armed Daxamites surrounded them, weapons raised. Zod's voice dripped with venom. "You'll stand trial for your crimes against our people, human. Your execution will be most satisfying." Roger glanced at Zephyr, seeing his own desperation mirrored in her eyes. They had saved the planet from cosmic destruction, only to find themselves facing a new, all-too-human threat. As Zod's soldiers closed in, Roger's hand slipped into his pocket, fingers finding the small device Lana had pressed into his palm hours earlier. He activated it, praying it wasn't just another piece of alien tech he'd misunderstood. A high-pitched whine filled the air. Zod's eyes widened, his triumphant sneer faltering. "What trickery is this?" he snarled. The answer came in a blinding flash of light that engulfed the room. Roger instinctively shielded his eyes, feeling Zephyr press close against him. When the glare faded, a shimmering hologram dominated the chamber, a stern-faced human woman in a crisp uniform. "This is Captain Malik Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Artemis," the figure announced, her voice ringing with authority. "General Zod, stand down your forces immediately." Zod's face contorted with rage and disbelief. "Impossible! No human ship could—" "We've been monitoring this situation from orbit," Rodriguez cut him off. "Your singularity crisis threatened more than just Daxam. Earth was prepared to intervene if necessary." Roger's mind reeled. A human starship? Here? He glanced at Zephyr, seeing his own shock mirrored in her violet eyes. Before Zod could respond, Roger felt a strange tingling sensation. The world around him shimmered and dissolved. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing on a gleaming bridge, surrounded by banks of advanced technology that put even Daxamite engineering to shame. Captain Rodriguez strode towards them, her hologram replaced by flesh and blood. "Welcome aboard the Artemis, Dr. Robertson. Princess Zephyr." "How?" Roger began, struggling to process the situation. "How long have you been here?" Rodriguez's lips quirked in a small smile. "Longer than you might think, Doctor. Starwatch has had its eye on you for years." "Starwatch?" Zephyr interjected, her voice tight with suspicion. "A clandestine Earth organization dedicated to monitoring potential cosmic threats," Rodriguez explained. "We recognized Dr. Robertson's brilliance early on and, shall we say, nurtured it." The implication hit Roger like a physical blow. "You've been guiding my research? My kidnapping? Was that part of your plan too?" Rodriguez nodded. "We needed a human agent in place when the Daxamite crisis reached its peak. You performed admirably." Zephyr's eyes flashed dangerously. She whirled on Roger, her fists clenched. "You knew about this? You lied to me? To all of us?" "No," Roger protested, raising his hands. "I swear I had no idea until just now." "He's telling the truth, Princess," Rodriguez interjected. "Dr. Robertson was an unwitting asset. His actions and breakthroughs were his own." Zephyr's anger deflated slightly, but wariness remained etched on her features. A young officer approached, tablet in hand. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Daxamite capital. Supreme Chancellor Zorax is requesting to speak with you." Rodriguez nodded. "Put him through." A holographic screen materialized, revealing Zorax's lined face. His eyes widened at the sight of Roger and Zephyr. "So it's true," the Chancellor breathed. "Humanity has been watching us all along." "We have," Rodriguez confirmed, "and now we're here to help. Our teams are already on the ground, working to restore Daxam's power systems." Zorax's expression cycled through shock, indignation, and finally, grudging acceptance. "It seems we owe your people a great debt, Captain. Perhaps it is time our civilizations pursued a more open dialogue." Rodriguez smiled. We would welcome that, Chancellor. But first, there are greater mysteries to unravel. She turned to Roger and Zephyr. The singularity that nearly destroyed Daxam wasn't a natural phenomenon. We've detected similar anomalies across the galaxy, all artificial in origin. Roger's scientific curiosity ignited. Created by whom? That's what we need to find out, Rodriguez said. We believe an ancient race may have scattered these tests throughout the cosmos. Their purpose and the potential threat they pose remain unknown. She fixed them with a piercing stare. We need your help to investigate, both of you. Zephyr bristled. You expect me to simply abandon my people? Your expertise could save countless worlds, Princess, Rodriguez countered, including Daxam should another crisis arise. Zephyr's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. It seems I have little choice. Roger reached out, gently squeezing her arm. We'll face this together, he said softly. As the Artemis prepared to break orbit, Roger stared out at the blue-green orb of Daxam. His mind buzzed with questions about Starwatch, the mysterious anomalies, and the journey ahead. But one thing was certain. The universe had suddenly become a much larger, more dangerous, and infinitely more fascinating place. The Artemis sliced through the inky void of space, its quantum engines humming with almost unchecked power. Roger stood at a viewport, watching stars streak by in ribbons of light. The vastness of their mission settled over him like a heavy cloak. Still processing? Zephyr's voice came from behind him. He turned to face the Daxamite princess, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. Every time I think I've wrapped my head around it, some new implication hits me. Before she could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Dr. Robertson, Princess Zephyr, please report to the briefing room. They found Captain Rodriguez waiting with a tall, broad-shouldered man whose dark skin gleamed under the room's harsh lighting. His crisp uniform bore the insignia of a lieutenant commander. This is Akachi Adedayo, my second-in-command, Rodriguez said. He'll be overseeing the next phase of our operation. Adedayo's deep voice filled the room as he activated a holographic display. What you're about to see is classified at the highest levels. The air shimmered, resolving into an image of a pulsing singularity. Roger recognized it immediately as the one that had threatened Daxam. This, Adedayo said, was no natural phenomenon. He manipulated the controls, and the image zoomed out. Similar anomalies appeared, scattered across a map of the galaxy. We've detected identical signatures in multiple star systems, Adedayo continued. Our analysis suggests they're artificial constructs, placed deliberately. Zephyr's eyes narrowed. By whom? That's the trillion-credit question, Princess, Adedayo replied. We believe they're the work of an ancient, hyper-advanced civilization, a race that seeded these tests throughout the cosmos eons ago. Roger's mind reeled. Tests? For what purpose? To cull the weak, Rodriguez interjected, to eliminate species lacking the scientific prowess to overcome them. A heavy silence fell over the room. Our mission, Adedayo said, breaking the tension, is to investigate the source of these anomalies, to find the first cause, as we've termed it. He turned to Roger and Zephyr. Your unique combination of knowledge and skills makes you invaluable to this endeavor. Together, we may be able to decipher the clues left behind and potentially make contact with these precursors. Zephyr's posture stiffened. And if we refuse? The threat to Daxam may be neutralized for now, Rodriguez said softly, but there could be other dangers lurking out there. Your participation could save countless lives, including those of your own people. The princess's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly. Then it seems I have no choice. Roger placed a hand on her arm. We're in this together, he said, and think of the scientific breakthroughs we might unlock. Days blurred into weeks as they hurtled through space. Roger immersed himself in the data, poring over energy readings and theoretical models. Zephyr threw herself into tactical simulations, preparing for any potential threats they might encounter. Finally, Adedayo called them to the bridge. A desolate, scarred world filled the view screen. We've traced some unusual energy signatures to this system, he explained, but the radiation levels are off the charts. We'll need to suit up. Hours later, Roger found himself trudging across a barren landscape. His protective suit felt claustrophobic, the Geiger counter's constant clicking a grim reminder of the hostile environment. Zephyr moved with fluid grace despite the cumbersome gear. "Over here," she called, gesturing towards a rocky outcropping. As they approached, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. A fissure opened, revealing a glint of metal. "My God," Roger breathed as they excavated the object. It was unmistakably technological, a sleek, obelisk-like structure, pulsing with an inner light. Adidio's voice crackled over the comms. "Initial scans indicate it's some kind of wormhole generator. The power source, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered." Roger's fingers flew over his portable scanner. The quantum signature matches the Daxamite anomaly perfectly. In these readings, they're impossible. Zephyr leaned in, her eyes wide behind her faceplate. "What do you mean?" "According to this," Roger said, his voice filled with awe, "we're looking at technology over 100 billion years old." The implications hit them like a physical blow. This artifact predated the universe itself. As the team worked feverishly to document their find, Roger's mind raced with possibilities. The physics at play here defied everything he thought he knew about the cosmos. Zephyr's tactical mind was already several steps ahead. "If this is how they traveled," she mused, "it explains how they seeded those challenges across such vast distances." A warning klaxon cut through their excitement. Adidio's voice was tense. "We've got company, multiple ships entering the system." "Zod!" Zephyr hissed, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Roger's blood ran cold. Their greatest discovery might also be their undoing. Roger's heart pounded as he watched Zod's ships descend through the atmosphere. The General's vendetta had followed them across light years, threatening to destroy their greatest discovery yet. "We need to secure that artifact," Adidio barked. "Prepare for emergency evac." As the team scrambled to salvage what data they could, Roger felt Zephyr's hand grip his arm. "We can't let him have this," she hissed, violet eyes blazing. Before Roger could respond, a blinding flash erupted from the horizon. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, scattering equipment across the desolate landscape. When the dust settled, Roger found himself separated from the others. Zod's forces had made planetfall, their energy weapons carving furrows through the ancient soil. He ducked behind a twisted spire of alien metal, trying to get his bearings. Weeks later, Roger stood before a gleaming holographic display aboard the Artemis, his mind still reeling from their narrow escape. Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through his reverie. "Doctor, I'd like you to meet someone." He turned to see a woman with dark skin and keen eyes extending her hand. "Dr. Khadija Bashir," she introduced herself. "I understand you've made quite the discovery." Over the next few days, Roger immersed himself in Bashir's research. The xenoarchaeologist's theories about the precursors, an ancient race that had seeded technological tests throughout the galaxy, aligned perfectly with what they'd encountered. "These energy signatures," Roger muttered, poring over data from the wormhole generator. "They shouldn't be possible." Bashir nodded, her eyes gleaming. "Exactly. We're dealing with physics beyond our current understanding. But there may be a way to learn more." She brought up a star chart, highlighting a system on the outskirts of Daxamite space. "We've detected similar anomalies here. If my calculations are correct, it could be an archive world." Roger's excitement was palpable. "We have to investigate." Zephyr, who had been silently observing, spoke up. "And if Zod follows us there?" "That's a risk we'll have to take," Adidio said, joining them. "I'm assembling a strike team. We leave in 48 hours. The journey pushed the Artemis to its limits, crossing vast stretches of uncharted space. When they finally emerged from FTL, the sight before them left the crew speechless. A massive ring world encircled a pulsing neutron star, its surface a maze of towering alien structures. As they made planetfall, Roger marveled at the precursor's engineering prowess. "Radiation levels are off the charts," Bashir warned as they donned protective suits. "We don't have much time." They pressed deeper into the ruins, surrounded by machines that defied comprehension. At the heart of the complex they found it, a shimmering data core, pulsing with multi-dimensional energy. "This is it," Roger breathed, reaching for the alien interface. "The key to unlocking—" An explosion rocked the chamber. Zod's forces had arrived, their weapons trained on the fragile data core. "Destroy it all," the general's voice boomed. "Leave nothing for these vermin." Chaos erupted. Roger lost sight of Zephyr in the melee, diving for cover as energy bolts seared the air. He found himself in a small antechamber, surrounded by unfamiliar technology. A stray shot struck nearby, and Roger stumbled backward. His hand brushed against a control panel, and suddenly the world around him changed. Silvery tendrils enveloped his body, hardening into a flexible shell. Information flooded his mind. The chamber was a precursor nanofabrication unit, and it had just integrated him into its systems. Roger gasped as understanding washed over him. He could feel the exotic matter at a subatomic level, ready to be reshaped at his will. With a thought, he extended a protective barrier around himself, deflecting deadly radiation. As Zod's forces closed in on the data core, Roger knew he had to act. His mind raced, combining his scientific knowledge with the precursor technology now at his fingertips. He stepped out of the chamber, hands outstretched, ready to unleash the power of creation itself. Roger's mind expanded, flooded with newfound power and understanding. The nanofabrication unit had transformed him, integrating his consciousness with the alien technology. He stepped out of the chamber, hands outstretched, exotic matter dancing at his fingertips. Zod's forces converged on the data core, weapons primed. Roger acted on instinct, his thoughts translating instantly into reality. A shimmering force field materialized around the core, deflecting a barrage of energy bolts. "Impossible!" Zod roared, his face contorted with rage. Roger's eyes blazed with concentration. The ground beneath their feet rippled and surged. Massive energy cannons erupted from the ruins, their barrels swiveling to target the Daxamite ships above. Zephyr gaped at the transformation. "Roger, how are you?" He cut her off with a gesture, focusing on the battle at hand. The cannons fired, lances of coherent light slicing through Zod's fighters. Explosions bloomed in the sky as the outmatched vessels plummeted to the ground. Zod's troops scattered, seeking cover. Roger's mind raced, calculating trajectories and force vectors. With a thought, he conjured shimmering bubbles of energy that enveloped the soldiers, lifting them off their feet and rendering them harmless. "You think your parlor tricks can defeat me?" Zod snarled, raising his weapon. "I'll crush you myself." The general fired, a devastating blast hurtling towards Roger. Time seemed to slow as he processed countless variables, searching for a solution. But before he could act, a blur of motion interposed itself between them. "Zephyr!" Roger's heart lurched. Without conscious thought, his power surged outward. Nanites swarmed over the princess, coalescing into a protective shell mirroring his own. The energy bolt splashed harmlessly against her new armor. Zod howled in frustration, unleashing a torrent of fire. Roger's mind raced, tapping into the vast energy reserves hidden within the ruins. He shaped the raw power into a blazing sword of plasma, its edge sharp enough to cleave atoms. "Hold on," he shouted to Zephyr, grasping her hand. Roger focused, bending the very fabric of space around them. The world blurred, and suddenly they were across the chamber, safely out of Zod's line of fire. With the immediate threat neutralized, Roger turned his attention to the data core. Its secrets called to him, a siren song of knowledge. He reached out with his enhanced senses, probing the quantum encryption. Zephyr watched in awe as Roger's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "What do you see?" "Everything," he whispered. The archive's defenses crumbled before him. Information flooded his consciousness. The history of the precursors, the nature of their tests, glimpses of technologies beyond imagining. Roger's hands moved in intricate patterns, shaping gravitational fields and manipulating matter at its most fundamental level. The sprawling alien complex began to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Walls dissolved and reformed. Spires stretched towards the sky. When the transformation was complete, a sleek starship stood before them, its hull gleaming with an opalescent sheen. By the gods, Zephyr breathed. Roger smiled, feeling the thrum of antimatter reactors awakening within the vessel. Our ticket out of here. A commotion outside drew their attention. The Artemis had arrived, flanked by the battered remnants of the Starwatch fleet. Zod's remaining forces were in retreat. Supreme Chancellor, Zorax's holographic image flickered to life before them. Dr. Robertson, you've done the impossible. We owe you a great debt. Zod's face appeared, twisted with hardly restrained fury. This changes nothing. That technology belongs to Daxam. Enough, Zorax snapped. Your vendetta ends now, General. We will negotiate terms for a cessation of hostilities. As the political maneuvering began, Roger turned to Zephyr. What do you say? Ready for another adventure? The princess's eyes sparkled. I wouldn't miss it for all the stars in the sky. They boarded the precursor vessel, its systems responding eagerly to Roger's thoughts. As the ship lifted off, leaving the ruins behind, Roger's mind teemed with possibilities. The secrets of the first cause lay somewhere out there, waiting to be unraveled. The vast emptiness of uncharted space beckoned, promising wonders and dangers beyond imagination. Roger set a course, the stars blurring around them as they leapt into the unknown. The precursor vessel hummed with latent power as Roger and Zephyr charted a course into the unknown. Streams of data flickered across holographic displays, decoding the vast archive they had acquired. There, Roger said, gesturing to a swirling vortex of energy on the star map. That's where it all began. As they approached the cataclysmic failed star system, the ship's sensors screamed warnings. Gravitational waves buffeted the hull, warping space-time around them. By the gods, Zephyr breathed, violet eyes wide. What are we seeing? Before them stretched an impossible structure, a vast ring world under construction. Swarms of autonomous nanoforges swarmed its circumference, harvesting debris from shattered planets to expand the cosmic megastructure. Roger's enhanced consciousness interfaced with the ship's systems, drinking in torrents of data. This is it, the birthplace of the precursors? Those nanoforges. They're building a stable pocket reality within the space-time rift. They maneuvered closer, the ship's screens adapting to filter out the blinding energies swirling around them. At the heart of the ring world, sensors detected an anomaly that defied comprehension. A hypermassive neutron star, Roger explained, encased in some kind of pan-dimensional shell. The gravitational readings are impossible. Zephyr leaned forward, transfixed. We need to get closer. As they approached the core, proximity alarms blared. A familiar voice crackled over the comms. Surrender now, vermin! General Zod's face appeared on the main view screen, twisted with hatred. That technology belongs to Daxam. A swarm of Daxamite warships materialized from hyperspace, weapons charging. Energy beams lanced out, battering the ring world's integrity field. No, Roger shouted. The space-time vortex, it's destabilizing. The battle raged as Roger's hands danced over the controls, his mind merging with the ship's systems. Quantum tornadoes erupted around them, threatening to consume everything in a terminal singularity. We have to contain it, Zephyr yelled over the cacophony of alarms. Roger nodded, his eyes glowing with otherworldly energy. I have an idea, but it's risky. Hold on. He poured all remaining power into the ship's systems, interfacing with the precursor shell. A multi-dimensional force field erupted around them, derived from the exotic metamaterial's pan-spatial geometry. Time seemed to stretch and warp as Roger pushed his new abilities to their limit. With a final burst of effort, he froze the accelerating collapse, warping space into a new higher-dimensional manifold bubble. The singularity's pull dissipated, leaving them adrift in a sea of fractured space-time. Zod's ships had vanished, either destroyed or flung to the far reaches of the cosmos. As the immediate danger passed, Roger slumped in his chair, exhausted. Zephyr placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression a mix of awe and concern. What you did, it was incredible, she said softly. But we can't keep chasing these mysteries alone. The power we've uncovered, it's too dangerous. Roger nodded slowly, his mind racing with possibilities and dangers. You're right. We need allies, but who can we trust? Zephyr's eyes hardened with willpower. There are still stable factions on Daxam. If we could convince them of the threat. No, Roger interrupted. There's another option. The Prometheans, a human xenophile cult. They might have the knowledge we need to move forward safely. Silence fell between them as the weight of the decision pressed down. The fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance, their next move holding the potential to reshape the cosmos itself. Zephyr stared out at the swirling dimensional anomaly, conflict evident in her eyes. I never thought I'd consider allying with those who once betrayed my people, she murmured. But after what we've seen, can we afford not to explore every option? Roger's hands hovered over the navigation controls, awaiting her decision. Whatever path they chose, the journey ahead would push them to the very limits of science, politics, and their own humanity. Roger's fingers danced across the ship's control interface, initiating a complex series of calculations. I've reconfigured the Ansible communicator, he announced. We're about to broadcast on a frequency that should catch the Prometheans' attention. Zephyr frowned, her violet eyes clouded with doubt. Are you certain this is wise? We know so little about these cultists. It's a risk we have to take, Roger replied, his teeth gritted. The Daxamite Science Directorate is too entrenched in politics. We need minds unfettered by conventional limitations. The Ansible pulsed, sending encoded quantum packets into the void. For hours they waited in tense silence, adrift in the dimensional bubble Roger had created. Just as fatigue began to set in, the ship's sensors pinged. A battered freighter materialized before them, its hull a patchwork of mismatched alloys. The vessel's comm system crackled to life, and a gaunt face filled their view screen. Greetings, Seekers, the figure intoned, cybernetic implants glinting along his temples. I am Erasmus, the Grand Master awaits. Without further explanation, a shimmering portal blossomed in space. Erasmus's ship glided through, leaving Roger and Zephyr little choice but to follow. They emerged into a realm that defied conventional physics. A sprawling space station hung suspended in a sea of swirling, non-baryonic matter. Zephyr gasped as the alien geometry seemed to shift and pulse with each blink. Erasmus guided their ship to a docking bay that seemed to fold into existence as they approached. Welcome, he said, his voice devoid of warmth, to Nexus Omega. They disembarked, following their guide through corridors that seemed to defy Euclidean space. At last, they entered a vast chamber where multiple bodies moved in eerie synchronization around a central dais. Behold, Erasmus intoned, the Grand Master. The figure that turned to face them was a composite being, consciousness spread across multiple host bodies, connected by threads of shimmering energy. When it spoke, a chorus of voices resonated in perfect harmony. At last, the Grand Master said, you have come seeking answers. Roger stepped forward, his enhanced mind struggling to process the alien geometries surrounding them. We've unlocked precursor technology, but we need help understanding its true potential. The Grand Master's many faces smiled in unison. The precursors were beings of unimaginable power. They merged their very essence with the fabric of higher dimensions, ascending beyond the limits of our paltry, four-dimensional existence. Zephyr's eyes widened. The ruins we found, they were tests? Indeed, the Grand Master confirmed. Tribulations to separate those worthy of ascension from lesser minds trapped in local space-time. Roger's excitement grew as the Prometheans revealed the fruits of their esoteric research. The cult had spent decades cataloging and deciphering fragments of precursor lore scattered across the cosmos. But as the Grand Master expounded on theories of hyperversal planes and psycho-realignment, Zephyr grew uneasy. She noticed a predatory gleam in the being's compound gaze. Your insights are fascinating, Roger said, his mind racing with possibilities. But how can we harness this knowledge? The Grand Master's smile widened. We have the means to unlock true cosmic potential. All we require is your unique comprehension of the physics involved. Alarm bells rang in Zephyr's mind as the Promethean leader outlined a plan involving a singularity generator, one capable of reordering the entire galaxy. Roger, caught up in the intoxicating flood of new concepts, didn't see the danger. But Zephyr recognized the fanatical glint in the Grandmaster's eyes. This wasn't mere scientific curiosity. It was the zeal of true believers prepared to reshape reality itself. As Roger eagerly examined schematics for the Promethean's reality-warping device, Zephyr slipped away. She accessed a nearby terminal, her royal training in cryptography allowing her to bypass its security. What she found chilled her to the core. The Prometheans' plan would annihilate trillions across normal space-time, all in pursuit of their warped vision of transcendence. Zephyr's hand hovered over the ship's emergency beacon. One press would alert the Daxamite fleet to their location, but using it would betray Roger's trust and potentially doom them both. She closed her eyes, weighing the future of the cosmos against her loyalty to her companion. The choice before her was impossible, yet she knew she had to act. Zephyr's fingers hovered over the emergency beacon, her heart pounding. In that moment of hesitation, she made her decision. Silently, she activated a covert uplink to her father's flagship. Supreme Chancellor. Zorax's holographic visage materialized, his brow furrowed with concern. Zephyr? What? She cut him off, speaking in rapid, hushed tones. Father, we're in grave danger. The Prometheans plan to reshape reality itself. Billions will die. We need your help. Zorax's expression hardened. Allying with xenophiles. It goes against everything. There's no time, Zephyr hissed. This threat outweighs old prejudices. Please, Father. After a tense moment, Zorax nodded. I'm dispatching our elite strike team. Hold fast. Zephyr severed the connection and rejoined Roger, who remained engrossed in the Promethean's hypergeometric schematics. She caught the eye of one of the Grandmaster's bodyguards. Care for a friendly spar? Zephyr asked, adopting a casual stance. I'd love to test my skills against a Promethean warrior. As they engaged in mock combat, Roger glanced up, confusion flickering across his face. Zephyr met his eyes, giving an almost imperceptible nod. Understanding dawned, and he subtly reached for a device concealed in his coat. In one fluid motion, Roger activated the chronofield disruptor. Reality stuttered around them as the Prometheans' defenses faltered. In that instant, the air shimmered, and Daxamite stealth shuttles materialized within the sanctum. Chaos erupted, energy weapons discharged, filling the air with acrid smoke. Temporal distortion fields clashed with Roger's nanite-augmented suits. Zephyr's alien physiology, further enhanced by Roger's secret atoscale gauntlets, allowed her to move with preternatural speed and grace. As the three-way battle raged, Roger fought his way to a central console. His eyes widened in horror as he deciphered the readouts. Zephyr, he shouted over the din, they've already started the cascade. Our universe is being unmade. The Grandmaster's many faces twisted into a triumphant grin. You're too late, primitives. Transcendence awaits. Roger's mind raced, processing variables faster than any unaugmented human. There's only one way to stop this, he muttered, fingers flying across the alien interface. We have to reverse the portal's polarity. As he worked, the Grandmaster's essence tore free from its host bodies, coalescing into a psionic maelstrom. It lashed out and Zephyr screamed as she was enveloped in a shimmering hyperbolic field. No! Roger cried, reaching for her. Time seemed to freeze as Roger faced an impossible choice. Complete the reversal and save reality, or abandon his work to free Zephyr. In that eternal instant, he saw the horror of the Promethean's vision, a cold, unfeeling infinitude devoid of meaning. With a soul-wrenching cry, Roger made his choice. His fingers danced across the controls, tears streaming down his face as he watched Zephyr fade from this reality. The singularity imploded, reality rewriting itself around them. The Prometheans shrieked as their bodies dissolved into fractal patterns, scattered across subspace. When the maelstrom subsided, only Zorax's flagship and the ruined Promethean station remained. Roger stood alone amidst the devastation, his enhanced mind blown from the implications of what he'd discovered and what he'd lost. As Daxamite crews swarmed the station, he retreated to a quiet corner, overwhelmed by grief and revelation. He understood now the hollowness of the Prometheans' pursuit. They had chased godhood at the expense of humanity, forsaking the very things that gave existence its richness. As the shock of recent events began to fade, Roger's grit crystallized. He would continue to explore the Precursor's legacy, but with a new purpose, to bridge the gap between cosmic truths and mortal experience. And always, always, he would carry the memory of Zephyr, his guiding star in the vast emptiness of space. On Daxam, the first tentative steps toward human-alien cooperation were being taken. But as Roger stared out at the star-flecked void, he knew the true challenges lay ahead. The cosmos held wonders and terrors beyond imagination, and it would take all their wisdom and compassion to face them.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.